And welcome to Wednesday Night Slides number 51. Tonight we got a varied bit of stuff, all kind of things. Mostly from a trip I just took out to Chicagoland and back, which involves quite a bit of just variety. Can you all see the opening slide there okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I see
right.
Peyton front and center.
Yeah, okay. As usual, during the program, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to jump in. Easiest way to do that is to just hit the space bar on your computer and hold it down, ask your question, make your comment, and then release the space bar. No worries on my end. We're going to start off, though, not with the Midwest trip, but just something I did early in April. I had to go out to East Broad Top for a top secret mission. And just coincidentally, while the day I was there, 16 was out being test fired. They're brand newly restored 282. So that was a bit of a bonus. And they had to actually run a test train up to Colgate Grove, empty test train up to Colgate Grove to test out the new wheelchair lift they just installed up at the Grove. And I think any excuse to get the 16 out on the road is okay with them. They like running it. So here
I bet you're right on that.
Yeah. So here we see the train coming up to McMullen Summit, famous bridge. This is a cool location that just opened up. Actually, this wasn't even available last time they ran steam back in 2011. The bridge is now pretty decrepit. So to reach this farmhouse, they put in this new grade crossing. And it's opened up a nice little angle. Can't use it for a photo charter. It's not big enough of a location. But it's a nice little angle. The farmhouse itself has not been used even since before 2011, I think. It's been empty for quite a while, although apparently the owner lives nearby and keeps an eye on things. This is up at Runk Road, the Big Phil, near the north end of the tourist part of the line. Shot this through a barn that sits right out on Route 522. I thought it looked kind of cool in black and white, maybe, so I converted it. And then this is something that Joe Goodrich posted a shot of this on Facebook a couple of months ago. And I thought this is kind of cool. So I went there and shot it myself. It's not hard to find. I don't know why I never saw it before. It sits right out in 522, just north of where the current East Broad Top ends. But that was just my little visit out to East Broad Top early in the month. Now we're going to get into my trip out to the Midwest. And I said it's a lot of variety here. I didn't limit myself to just trains. I picked off a few other things as I went along. I started off in Lancaster County. This is Dutch Haven. The tacky windmill, but it recently closed down. And I wanted to get some shots of it before something weird happened to it. You never know with these places. Really the quintessential Lancaster County tourist trap.
Is the Chicagoland pie still any good?
Sorry?
Is the Chicagoland pie still any good?
I don't know. They were pretty famous for their fruit fly pies. And their Amish stuff too. But with this closing down this year and Roadside America closing down a couple of years ago, you begin to wonder if maybe the mid-century tourist trap era that had a bit of a nostalgic rebirth last decade or so. I wonder if that is beginning to crack now, and some of these places are going to get endangered again. The owner of Dutch Haven is trying to find somebody who will reopen the business, but don't know if that's going to happen or not. This isn't very far from where I live. It's only an hour, but like I said, it was a sunny day. You never know what's going to happen to these places. So I decided to make the stop and get it. About halfway into my first day of travel, which was going to take me out to the Ohio border, I took a break to watch some trains. I stopped in Mexico, Pennsylvania. Mexico is actually just across the river, not the Rio Grande, but the Juniata in this case. Off to the left, that's the nearest town. That's where Route 22 runs through, alongside Mexico. This is on the south side, geographically, of the Juniata. Got this stack train, and that's about all I got during the hour and a half or so that I stopped to take a break. Nice day, sit out, wait for trains to come. Just one came. And then I was going through Clearfield, Pennsylvania, right about sunset. I noticed the Sapp Brothers sign was lit up with a bit of a blue sky. So I stopped to shoot that. I don't think the rim is still neon. It's probably LED, judging by the way it sags a little bit where the spout is on the left. But I would imagine that at one time, although there's a piece of it missing there near the top. Maybe it is still neon. I don't know. So anyhow, the destination for that first day, for day two, was Ashtabula County, Ohio, which is right up in the northeast corner, tucked up against Pennsylvania and Lake Erie. Oh, there's the coffee pot again. And one thing Ashtabula has is covered bridges. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a covered bridge in Ashtabula County. There are 17 of them in total. And part of the reason there are 17 covered bridges in Ashtabula County is because Ashtabula County cheats. They build new covered bridges. So I went on a little tour of some of the 17, starting with Caine Road, which is actually a new covered bridge, fairly new, built in 1986. Now, to be fair, Ashtabula County does build real covered bridges. It's not like they put like steel girders down and then put a wooden frame on top. They actually have built these as authentic wooden covered bridges. And with the marvels of digital photography, you can now do stuff like shoot the interiors of covered bridges without blowing out the outside scenery at the same time. Next up is Graham Road. No built date on this. Apparently it was reconstructed from parts of a bridge that got washed away in a flood. It sits in a public park now. As to whether it was located somewhere near here or not, I don't know originally. May have been the bridge that was over the creek right here. An older bridge, Root Road, that was built in 1868. This is sort of a straight line. I was driving north from Hermitage, Pennsylvania. These are all pretty much right in a straight line over the same waterway, approaching Conneaut. Another view of Root Road. And State Road, built in 1983, another one of the newer bridges in Ashtabula County. And Creek Road, this has no built date. It's an older bridge, but they're not sure when it was originally built. Complete with a wagon wheel. That got me up to Conneaut, where I photographed the Conneaut breakwater lighthouse. Way out. Apparently, you can walk the breakwater out there, but it's a long breakwater, and a little more than I wanted to tackle. Especially since it's not really a flat breakwater, it's rocky. It would be a fairly treacherous walk out there. I then remembered that Conneaut had a nickel plate road Berkshire on display facing east, and I had not ever been to Conneaut on a sunny morning when the light would be good. So I swung by the Conneaut Railroad Museum to shoot the Burke, the 755. It's missing some of the glass out of its number boards. And that's the old New York Central station behind it. In Conneaut, the New York Central and Nickel Plate run only a couple of blocks apart from each other. Norfolk Southern is on the Nickel Plate, CSX is on the old New York Central. Interestingly, this Nickel Plate Road locomotive is on display next to the New York Central. Okay, back to the covered bridges. Now I'm heading largely east to west, maybe 8 miles off the shore of Lake Erie. Middle Road was built in 1868 and rebuilt in 1984. Benetka Road was built in 1900. And some of the neat wood detail on the bridge. Olin's Bridge was built in 1873. This is weird. These are side-by-side covered bridges. Yes, the bridge on the right is a covered bridge. And like I said, they're side by side here. The first one, the lower one, is Riverview. It's a brand new bridge built in 2016, pedestrian only, part of the Indian Trails Park. What's really interesting, though, is the Smolin Gulf Bridge next to it, built in 2008. When I first saw this, I'm like, this can't be a real covered bridge. But when I got down underneath of it to walk over to the Riverview Bridge and looked up at it, sure enough, it's got a wooden floor. The supports on the side are what support the bridge. It's not no beams or anything. It's actually supported by its frame. So it's a real covered bridge. Here you are at the Riverview Bridge looking out at the new Smolin Gulf Bridge. The Smolin Gulf Bridge is the largest covered bridge, longest covered bridge in the United States. Second longest in the world. And the two bridges together. From there, I wound up in Ashtabula. Ashtabula Breakwater Lighthouse is out there beyond the Norfolk Southern coal piers. And once again, it's at the end of a very long and unstable, and on this day, wet breakwater. I'm not sure why they put these lighthouses so darn far off land. It's like you need a boat to see them or something. And then the last covered bridge of the day was the West Liberty Street Bridge in Geneva. Went from the longest covered bridge in the U.S. to the shortest covered bridge in the U.S. Brand new bridge. But only 18 feet long. And once again, the frame supports the bridge, so it's an authentic covered bridge, just brand new. And if you wondered how long it was, you can look at the road and see it's got an 18-foot span. That brought me to Fairport Harbor. The breakwater light is way out there again. But fortunately, Fairport Harbor also has a lighthouse on land. I spent a few minutes doing some various shots there. At this point, I'm still just east of Cleveland. From there, I drove out to Wauseon, Ohio, which is actually just west of Toledo, for an afternoon break watching trains. Got this Union Pacific train going by the former New York Central station there in Wauseon. My initial plan was to spend about an hour here and then do a big push all the way around Chicago up to Racine, Wisconsin, about a 5-hour drive. That was the original plan. But the trains are running in Wasion. The light was pretty decent. And I was running a little bit late, about an hour late. And the long drive to Racine was getting a little bit unappealing. My plan had been to hit the Racine Lighthouse at sunrise the next morning. And then the sun swung around to the other side of the tracks, which lit up the downtown for a train going east, but no more eastbounds showed up. But the light kept getting neater and neater for westbounds with the glint. About this time, I decided that, you know what, I am not going to go all the way to Racine. I'm going to hang out here. It's just too pleasant. Nice warm afternoon. Trains are running. I'm just going to hang out here until the sun sets, and then only go as far as Michigan City and go to a plan B for Friday. Things just kept getting better and better as the sun was setting. So now with a much shorter trip in the evening, I decided to go as far as Michigan City, Indiana, only 2 hours away instead of the 5 hours up to Racine. One of the things I had planned on this trip for the return was to take a swing by Notre Dame University and check out something I'd always wanted to see. That was planned for Sunday afternoon. However, Sunday afternoon's forecast was pretty bad. And but the reason I picked Sunday was because classes wouldn't be in session on the Sunday at Notre Dame. So traffic shouldn't be too bad. But here it was going to be Thursday night at about 8 or 9 o'clock. I figured, you know what, traffic isn't going to be too bad tonight. Let me just buzz in there and do the shot. What I wanted to see was Touchdown Jesus. My dad and my uncle were big Notre Dame fans, football fans. And so I kind of became one too. Plus, back when I was a kid, the only games on TV, college games, were whatever games were on ABC on Sunday, 1 or 2 games. Then the Notre Dame replay on Sunday morning before the NFL started. So I wanted to check out the mural Touchdown Jesus on the library. You can see this mural from New Rockland Stadium, which is how it got its name, Touchdown Jesus. And while I was here, nice warm night, I picked out a parking lot close to the shot on Google Maps. And the parking lot turned out to be the handicap lot for the library. But there was nobody there, plenty of room, so I parked there anyhow and walked out to get the shot. Out here on the plaza behind me, there's bonfires going, there's a band playing. The band's playing songs from like before I was in college. In fact, they were playing Looking Glasses, Brandy, or A Fine Girl as I was shooting this shot here. I thought, you know, if I hadn't parked illegally, I might have stuck around for a couple of hours and just enjoyed the band and everything else. So that was my venture into Notre Dame. Next morning, I got up to Michigan City in time to catch Amtrak coming through. Here's a eastbound Amtrak train going up into Michigan service. That's Drawbridge Tower, just to the right of the train. And you can barely see the framework for the drawbridge behind the train. Train kind of fills up the entire bridge there. But I wanted to check out what was happening over on the Chicago South Shore and South Bend. There used to be street running in Michigan City, but they're taking that out for a new double track project. Here we are on 10th Street. This is where the street running went through a residential section. There's the old right-of-way right there in the middle of 10th Street. The new double track line is over on the left-hand side. You see the houses on the right? Well, there were houses identical to those on the left-hand side all the way down for blocks and blocks. And the South Shore bought out all those houses, tore them all down to put in the double track main line here along 10th Street. This is the new Michigan City station at 11th Street. 11th Street was also street running at one time. 11th Street is now just that little alley you see on the left-hand edge of the picture. Brand new station. You can see 4 sets of rails through there. There are 4 rails. It's 2 sets of tracks. It's actually a gauntlet track for freight trains. Passenger trains would use the rails, use the right and the next to the left rail to access the platform. Freights would stay away from the platform using the far left rail and the second rail from the right. And both platforms have gauntlet tracks. And this is some of the new right of way. Right now, this is all bus service through here. They haven't started running trains through Michigan City yet. So now with my original plans of being up in Racine and then over to Kenosha for the streetcars out the window, I decided to pick a line in Chicago I had not done much with, do some rail fanning. And that was the former Rock Island, which has some pretty cool stations on it around Beverly Hills. Here we see Metra's unit painted in honor of the state of Illinois at one of the stations. The stations on this line are only about a mile apart. They're not very far apart at all. This is the Illinois unit going away now. He'd gone down to Blue Island, changed ends, and is now going back to Chicago. And a standard Metra painted locomotive. And then went up north one more station and got this Metra train going away. And then this one coming south from Chicago. My destination ultimately was the Center for River Photography and Art Conference held in Lake Forest up north of Chicago. And I was meeting my associate or managing editor, Otto Vondrak, at the Lake Forest station. He had flown in and taken a train to Lake Forest. So I was picking him up Friday afternoon. The conference started Friday night. This is a southbound train going by the Lake Forest station. Unfortunately, all the trains on this line have engines on the north end, so you would never get an engine on this end, the sunny end going by this Lake Forest line, which is just too bad. But anyhow, lo and behold, Otto's that's the same train going away. Lo and behold, though, Otto's train came in, and it had the Chicago Northwestern Heritage unit on it. So I got that in CNNW territory. That was kind of cool. So I was kind of happy with my plan B because I got 2 of the specially painted Metra engines. Plus enjoyed the great sunset at Wauseon the previous evening, plus got night shots of Touchdown Jesus. So my plan B wasn't all that bad. From there, I went to the conference, and while I don't usually take people pictures, I did take some photos during the conference, and the light in the room where the conference was held was horrible, backlit. You had the screens, but you also had windows behind the screens, and bright light was coming in. So I did some portraits from where I was sitting in the audience, and to convert them to black and white. Like I said, I don't do people shots very much, but these turned out kind of cool. That's Bon French. She's the chairman of the board for the Center for Rare Photography and Art. And Scott Lotus is the executive director. One of the presenters was Gordon Glattenberg, one of the great photographers from California. And Eugene Armour, he just moved to the Philadelphia area recently. He was shooting up in New York quite a bit when he was living there, and he's originally from South Africa. And William Deal, he's from out in New Mexico, engineer for Amtrak. And he was a presenter showing some of his stuff of the semaphores on Raton Pass under starry, starry skies, and some beautiful stuff. With the conference over on Sunday afternoon, my initial plan was to go to Stryker, Ohio, and do a night shot by the grain elevator here on Sunday night. Unfortunately, during the conference, we've gone from temperatures in the 80s and just gorgeous to temperatures in the 30s with a howling wind. And the wind was what was discouraging me from setting up my lights for a night shot. The lights would just blow over and get damaged. So I settled for this twilight shot at Stryker, and then decided to go over about 2 towns over to the west to Bryan, Ohio, which is an Amtrak stop, and use the station lights there to shoot some trains. So here we have a Norfolk Southern eastbound going by the Amtrak station in Bryan. This is all existing light stuff. Another one on the near track. And Amtrak going through. Had my original plan without the wind been in effect, I would have shot Amtrak at night going past that grain elevator in Stryker. Once again, with the bad weather, I modified my plan home. My initial plan for the next morning was to do some morning shots in Stryker because the grain elevator would have been lit nice for morning shots. But it was cloudy, it was miserable, it was windy. So that original plan also called for me to go over to Cleveland, over to Shaker Heights, and do stuff with the rapid transit over there, getting some twilight and night shots, and then staying out somewhere there and then driving home on Tuesday. Well, the weather was bad enough that I just went over to Cleveland, over to Shaker Heights, which is an interesting area, and shoot the RTA, the Cleveland Rapid Transit, in the mid-afternoon, and then just head for home. This is all in the area of Shaker Heights and Shaker Square on the east side of Cleveland. There's a couple of stations, though. Most of the stations are just little shelters. There are a couple of stations along the line. Shaker Square is where 2 lines split, so it's pretty busy. Half-hourly service on each of the 2 lines, which means 15-minute service from Shaker Square on west into Cleveland. Shaker Square was actually built by the Van Squarigan brothers. They are famous for developing the nickel plate road into the high-speed freight line that it became. They established Shaker Heights as a designed community for their workers of Cleveland to have an oasis to live in outside of town. And they built this line out there. The Shaker Heights Rapid Transit was the original one. But everything out there is brick. There's all these brick buildings that are now condos for the most part. But as you get further out from Shaker Square out towards Shaker Heights itself, huge houses. It's just an interesting area. These cars here are going to be replaced in the next 3 or 4 years, apparently. So I'm glad I got there and shot these. And in fact, I'll probably wind up doing some more of this when I come back from summer rail in August. This is the station at Shaker Square, modern station. The building on the right houses a diner. And one of the things I've been doing in Lightroom is having fun with the new filters. They got a filter where you can select just the sky. And what it allows me to do is to go in, select the sky, and if there's any texture in the clouds at all, I just darken it and really bring out the texture. That's the actual sky that was there. I just enhanced it with in Lightroom. Coming into Shaker Square from Cleveland, the railroad's in a long cut. Shaker Square is where it reaches street level.
Yeah, hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Have you tried the new denoise that's in Lightroom?
I have not, because my computer running Lightroom needs the operating system upgraded first. And that's something I'm going to tackle after I get out of magazine deadlines. You don't mess with computers during magazine deadlines.
No one does not do that.
Yeah, so. We're still at Shaker Square here. And then this is the line out to Shaker Heights from Shaker Square. Shaker Square itself was designed by the Van Swearingens to be like the gateway into Shaker Heights on the west end of town, where rapid transit and the roads would enter into Shaker Heights. This was the only station out this way that I saw that had street level station buildings with below street level platforms. Another one of the station structures. This is like 3 stations short of where the line ends in downtown Shaker Heights. That's going to wrap things up for tonight. This is all I have for tonight. Next show is going to be on Wednesday, May 24th, barring any like Stanley Cup deciding games being played that night. But tentatively Wednesday, May 24th will be the next show. Let me, so for the YouTube folks, I am going to sign off. This show will be on YouTube later tonight.